the Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with noise. Hundreds of alien beings filled the massive chamber, their different voices mixing together like a storm. Ambassador Jinwoo Park walked slowly down the center aisle, his black suit looking very plain next to the colorful robes and strange armor of the alien delegates. Jinwoo had done this walk many times before. For 20 years, he had represented Earth in this place. For 20 years, he had listened to the same complaints, the same insults, the same dismissive words about his people. Today felt different though. Today, something inside him had finally broken. The Vorthok delegate, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms, stood at the speaking platform. His name was Thekmar, and he spoke with the kind of voice that made it clear he thought he was better than everyone else. The humans, Thekmar said, waving one of his 4 hands, continue to waste our time with their primitive ideas. They bring us toys and call them technology. They offer us simple solutions to complex problems. How can we take seriously a species that still uses metal ships when we have grown our vessels from living crystal? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. The Serpentine Nexari delegates hissed their approval. The floating gas beings called the ethereals pulsed with colors that Jinwoo had learned meant satisfaction. Even the machine race known as the architects clicked their metal fingers in what passed for applause among their kind. Jinwoo sat in the human section, which was much smaller than the others. Only 12 seats for a species of 8 billion people. Next to him sat Hyejin Kim, Earth's chief negotiator. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her face showed no emotion, but Jinwoo could see her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. Furthermore, Thekmar continued, we have received reports that human colonies continue to experiment with dangerous quantum technologies. They play with forces they do not understand. They could damage the very fabric of space itself with their clumsy attempts at innovation. This was rich, Jinwoo thought. The quantum communication system that connected every world in the galaxy had been invented by a human scientist named Dr. Kim Taemin 30 years ago. The same technology that let Thekmar send his pompous speeches across thousands of light years had come from Earth. But somehow, the council had forgotten this fact. The crystalline speaker, a being made of living diamond, rose from her seat. The Vorthok delegate speaks truth, she said, her voice like music played on glass. Humanity lacks the wisdom that comes with age. They are children playing with the tools of adults. More agreement from the crowd. Jinwoo had to admit, many of these species were old. Some had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. The ethereals claimed their civilization was 1 million years old. The architects said they had been building and calculating since before Earth's sun was born. But age did not always mean wisdom. Jinwoo had learned this lesson many times. I move that we vote on the Andromeda Trade Consortium membership, announced the council speaker, a massive creature that looked like a walking tree. All those in favor of excluding humanity from the consortium. Lights began to glow throughout the chamber. Red lights meant yes, blue lights meant no. Jinwoo watched as hundreds of red lights filled the hall, like angry stars. Only a few blue lights appeared, scattered here and there among species that had worked closely with humans. The final count appeared on the main display, 847 in favor of exclusion, 73 against, 12 abstaining. The motion passes. The council speaker announced humanity will not be granted membership in the Andromeda Trade Consortium due to insufficient technological and cultural development. Jinwoo stood up slowly. The movement caught attention throughout the hall, and voices began to quiet. For a moment, the only sound was the humming of the great chamber's life support systems. Honored delegates, Jinwoo said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's amplification system. I have represented Earth in this body for 2 decades. In that time, I have watched as human innovations became standard throughout the galaxy. I have seen human medicine save billions of lives across hundreds of worlds. I have witnessed human agricultural techniques end famines that had lasted for centuries. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Nexari began to whisper among themselves. Yet each time we offer our knowledge freely, it is dismissed as primitive. Each time we solve problems that have puzzled your greatest minds, we are told we do not understand the complexities involved. Each time we extend friendship, we are reminded that we are too young, too simple, too human to be true partners. Thekmar made a dismissive gesture with 2 of his arms. More human emotional displays. This is exactly why. Silence, Jinwoo said quietly, but his voice cut through the Vorthok's words like a blade. Something in his tone made the entire hall go still. I am not finished. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or optical sensors or whatever served for eyes among the hundreds of species present. You call us primitive, yet your ships run on fusion reactors that human engineers designed to be safer and more efficient. You mock our medical knowledge, yet the nano-healers in your hospitals were created in Earth laboratories. You dismiss our farming methods, yet half the agricultural worlds in this galaxy use techniques developed by human scientists. The hall was completely silent now. Even the usual background hum of translators had stopped. You speak of our dangerous quantum experiments, The quantum communication network that carries your words to every corner of the galaxy was built by humans. The navigation systems that guide your ships through hyperspace were programmed by human mathematicians. The very chairs you sit in were manufactured using metallurgy techniques that Earth developed and shared freely. Hyjin stood up beside him. Then the other human delegates rose as well, one by one, until all 12 were standing. For 50 years, Jinwu continued, humanity has tried to be a good member of this galactic community. We have shared our knowledge, our resources, our friendship. We have asked for nothing in return except to be treated as equals. Today, you have made it clear that this will never happen. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a datapad. With deliberate movements, he activated it and began to read. By the authority granted to me by the United Earth Government, I hereby withdraw humanity from all Galactic Council activities. Effective immediately, all human colonies, research stations, and diplomatic missions will cease cooperation with non-human entities. All technological assistance, medical support, and scientific collaboration will end. The hall erupted in noise. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Some laughed, thinking it was a bluff. Others looked worried. The ether flashed colors that meant confusion and concern. You cannot be serious, Vecmer said, his voice rising above the chaos. You need us more than we need you. Jinwu smiled for the first time that day. It was not a pleasant smile. We shall see, he said. He walked toward the exit, the other human delegates following behind him. As they reached the doors, Jinwu turned back one last time. Good luck, he said to the assembled aliens. You're going to need it. The doors closed behind the humans with a soft hiss. In the Great Hall, the arguments continued for hours. Most delegates were angry at human arrogance. Some were confused by the sudden withdrawal. A few were beginning to worry. None of them yet understood that they had just witnessed the beginning of the end of their civilization as they knew it. High above the council chambers, in his private quarters aboard the Earth Embassy ship, Jinwu activated a secure communication channel. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to President Duhayan Li, a calm man with silver hair and intelligent eyes. Mr. President, Jinwu said, it's time to implement protocol, Exodus. The president nodded slowly. Are you certain this is the right path, Jinwu? They will never see us as equals. Sir, today proved that beyond any doubt, we have two choices. Accept permanent second-class status, or show them what the galaxy looks like without humanity. Very well, the president said. I'll send the activation codes within the hour. How long do you think it will take them to realize their mistake? Jinwu looked out the window of his quarters at the great space station that housed the Galactic Council. Ships from 1,000 worlds moved in carefully controlled patterns around the massive structure, all of them guided by human-designed traffic control systems. All of them powered by human-improved engines. All of them connected by human networks. Not long, he said. Not long at all. 3 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. Admiral Kung Sunam sat in his command chair aboard the hidden observation ship Quiet Watch. Deep in the empty space beyond the galaxy's outer rim, his ship was invisible to alien sensors, watching and listening to everything that happened in the galaxy. They had left behind. The first month had been exactly what everyone expected. The alien species celebrated. They threw parties on their home worlds. They sent messages to each other, saying how much better things would be without the annoying humans and their strange ideas. The second month brought confusion. Small problems started appearing across the galaxy. Nothing major at first, just little things that didn't work quite right anymore. Now, in the third month, Kyungsu was watching the alien civilizations begin to panic. Sir, said Lieutenant Bora Shin, his communications officer, we're receiving another distress signal from the Kepler agricultural zone. Kyungsu nodded. Let me hear it. The voice that came through the speakers was desperate and afraid. It belonged to a Nexari farmer named Sishtal, speaking in the hissing language of his people. The translation system turned his words into flat, emotionless text on the screen. Emergency request to all agricultural specialists. Our crop yields have dropped by 60%. The soil enhancement bacteria are dying. We do not understand why. Please send help immediately. Our people are beginning to starve. Kyungsu almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. The soil bacteria that the Nexari farmer was talking about had been developed by Dr. Taehyun Jung, a human scientist, who had spent 15 years perfecting the organisms. The bacteria needed special nutrients to survive, nutrients that only Earth's biolabs knew how to make. Dr. Jung was currently on a beach in Hawaii, enjoying his retirement. He had stopped checking his alien communications 3 months ago. What about the medical situation? Kyungsu asked. Getting worse, sir, replied Dr. Yoon Ji-yoon, who was serving as the ship's medical observer. She had once been the head of the Galactic Medical Consortium, the organization that shared medical knowledge across all species. The healing nanobots are failing everywhere. Without regular updates and maintenance, they're just expensive dust. Now, on the main screen, Kyungsu could see a report from the crystalline hegemony. Their beautiful diamond cities were dealing with a plague that was killing thousands of their people every day. The disease was something that human medicine could cure easily, but the aliens had always said human medical knowledge was too simple to be useful. The communication networks are failing too, added Commander Wu Jinhan from his station. 3 more sectors went dark yesterday. The quantum relays need constant adjustment, and apparently, none of the advanced species ever bothered to learn how to maintain them. Kung Su pulled up a map of the galaxy on his screen. Red dots showed areas where the quantum communication network had failed. 3 months ago, the entire galaxy had been connected by invisible threads of communication. Now, large areas were going silent, cut off from the rest of civilization. The irony was beautiful. The aliens had always claimed that humans were too primitive to understand quantum mechanics, yet the entire galactic communication system had been designed by Dr. Kim Taeman, a human physicist who was now growing vegetables in his garden and pretending the galaxy didn't exist. "Sir," said Captain Soyoung Bae, joining the conversation from her own stealth ship, "I've been monitoring the Nexus Gate network. Gates are shutting down, one by one. The Outer Rim colonies are becoming completely isolated. The Nexus Gates were humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. They created doorways through space, allowing instant travel between distant worlds. Building them required an understanding of space-time that most alien species couldn't grasp, even with human help. Maintaining them was even more difficult. The aliens had accepted the gates gratefully, but they had never bothered to learn how they worked. Why should they? The humans would always be there to fix any problems. Except the humans weren't there anymore. "How many gates are still working?" Kung Su asked. "About 40%, sir, and the number drops every day." The maintenance schedule called for weekly adjustments on each gate. No one has done maintenance in 3 months. Kung Su watched the real-time data flowing across his screens. The great civilization that had dismissed humanity as primitive was falling apart. Their advanced technology was useless without the human knowledge that made it work. The bioships of the organic collective were dying because they needed special symbiotic organisms that only human bioengineers knew how to create. The living computers of the data shepherds were breaking down because their biological components required nutrients that came from Earth's laboratories. Even the mighty architects, the ancient machine race that claimed to be older than the stars, were having problems. Their great construction projects had stopped because they couldn't get the rare metals they needed. Those metals came from human-designed mining operations that had been shut down when the humans left. "Sir, we're getting a priority message from Earth," said Lieutenant Shin. "Put it through." President Du-Hien Lee's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but satisfied. "Admiral Nam, how is our observation mission going?" "Better than expected. Mr. President, the aliens are beginning to realize how much they depended on us. Food production is dropping. Medical systems are failing. Transportation is breaking down. Communication networks are going dark. They're starting to panic." The President nodded. "Any attempts to contact us?" "Many, sir, but they're all demands, not requests. They're still acting like we owe them something. The Vorthok delegation sent a message yesterday ordering us to return and fix their problems immediately." "Ordering us?" The President's eyebrows rose. "Yes, sir. They seem to think this is just a tantrum that will pass. They don't understand that we're serious about staying away." "How long do you think it will take for them to understand?" Kung Su looked at his screens again. Every few minutes, another system failed somewhere in the galaxy. Another world went dark. Another civilization took one more step toward collapse. At this rate, sir, I'd say we have maybe 6 more months before they realize they need to change their attitude. But I think they'll try to force us back first. Force us back? Yes, sir. The hegemony war fleet is mobilizing. They think they can capture human colonies and make us work for them as slaves. President Lee was quiet for a moment. "Are our people ready?" "Yes, sir. General Donghyun Park has been preparing for this possibility. If they want to try force, they're going to get a very unpleasant surprise." "Good. Continue monitoring the situation." "And Admiral," "Yes, sir. Make sure our people understand that this is just the beginning. Things are going to get much worse before they get better." The screen went dark. Kyung-Soo sat back in his chair and watched the galaxy burn. Not with fire and explosions, but with the quiet collapse of a civilization that had forgotten how to take care of itself. In the distance, he could see the lights of alien ships moving desperately between worlds, trying to carry supplies and messages that the broken networks could no longer handle. They looked like ants trying to rebuild their hill after someone had kicked it over. The humans had been patient for 50 years. They had given their knowledge freely, asked for nothing but respect, and received only insults in return. Now the galaxy was learning what it really meant to be alone, and this was only the beginning. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal from galactic society, the galaxy was dying. Not quickly, like a star-going supernova, but slowly, like a patient with a failing heart. Ambassador Dayun Shin watched the emergency session of the Galactic Council from her hidden base in the Void Nebula. a place where space itself was so empty that even light seemed to give up trying to cross it. The great chamber that had once been filled with hundreds of proud alien delegates now held less than half that number. Many species couldn't attend because their ships couldn't travel anymore. The Nexus Gate network had collapsed to less than 20% functionality, and without the gates, crossing the galaxy took months instead of minutes. Those who had made it to the emergency session looked terrible. The Vorthok delegate Dekmer had lost weight, his blue skin now pale and sickly. The crystalline speaker's diamond body was cracked and dim. Even the eternal ethereals seemed to be flickering like candles in the wind. The situation is beyond critical, announced the council speaker, the tree-like being who led the sessions. His voice was weak and shaken. 17 major agricultural worlds have reported complete crop failure. The bioplague in the crystalline hegemony has spread to 43 worlds. The Nexus Gate network is down to 19% functionality, and dropping every day. Dayun smiled grimly as she watched the session. She remembered when these same beings had voted to exclude humanity from the Andromeda Trade Consortium because humans were too primitive. Now they were begging for help that would never come. "We must contact the humans," said a delegate from the Altarian Republic. "Whatever pride we must swallow, whatever apologies we must make, we need them back." "Never," shouted Dekmer, though his voice was much weaker than before. "We cannot bow to these primitive creatures. We are the elder races. We ruled the galaxy before they even discovered fire." "Your pride is killing us all," replied the Altarian delegate. "Look around you. Half the council cannot even attend this session because their ships are stranded. Our people are dying from diseases that human medicine could cure easily. Our worlds are starving because we don't know how to maintain the agricultural systems that humans built for us." Dayun pulled up a report on her private screen. The death toll was staggering. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds were suffering from problems that would have been simple to fix 6 months ago. The irony was bitter. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were helpless without the species they had considered too stupid to deserve respect. Commander Wu Han entered the observation room with the latest intelligence reports. His face was serious. "The situation is worse than we thought," he said. "The organic collective's bioships are dying faster than expected. Without the symbiotic organisms we created, their living vessels are basically rotting from the inside. They've lost 30% of their fleet." "What about the architects? Their great construction projects have all stopped." Turns out they were completely dependent on rare earth elements that could only be mined using human techniques. Their ancient knowledge is useless when it comes to practical engineering. Dayun nodded. The architects had always claimed to be the greatest builders in the galaxy, but their magnificent structures were actually built using materials and methods developed by humans. Without human mining technology, they couldn't get the materials they needed. Without human engineering knowledge, they couldn't figure out how to use substitutes. Any word from the medical sectors? Dr. Yanasio Kim has been monitoring the situation. The nanohealers are failing everywhere. Without regular programming updates, they're not just useless, they're actually becoming harmful. Some are attacking healthy cells by mistake. This was the cruelest irony of all. The medical nanobots that humans had freely shared with the galaxy were designed to learn and adapt. But that learning required constant guidance from human programmers who understood how the tiny machines worked. Without that guidance, the nanobots were making deadly mistakes. Dr. Yanasio Kim was currently living in a small cottage in the mountains of Korea, painting landscapes and pretending that the desperate messages filling her communication system didn't exist. Every day, dozens of alien worlds begged her to return and fix their medical systems. Every day, she deleted the messages. Without reading them, "Have they tried to locate our hidden colonies?" Dayun asked. "Yes, but they're not having much success. Turns out their sensor technology was also improved by human innovations. Without us, they can't see through our stealth systems." Dayun turned back to the council session. The debate was getting more heated. Some delegates wanted to surrender their pride and beg the humans to return. Others insisted that their superior technology would eventually solve all problems without human help. "We have located several human settlements," announced a delegate from the Hegemony War Fleet. "We could capture them and force them to work for us." The chamber erupted in argument. The Altarian delegate stood up angrily. "You want to enslave the people whose help we need? That will guarantee they never cooperate with us again. They will cooperate when they see our guns pointed at their children." The Hegemony delegate replied coldly. Dayun's smile disappeared. She had been hoping the aliens would come to their senses before resorting to violence. But it seemed like some species preferred to try force rather than admit they had been wrong. She activated her secure communication system and sent a priority message to Earth: military action likely. Recommend defensive preparations. The response came back within minutes from General Donghyun Park, already prepared. "Let them come." Back in the council chamber, the debate continued, but Dayun was no longer listening. She was thinking about the human colonies scattered throughout the galaxy, hidden but ready. The aliens thought they were dealing with the same peaceful species that had shared their knowledge freely for 50 years. They were about to discover that humans had many faces, and not all of them were friendly. The galaxy had chosen its path. Instead of swallowing their pride and asking for help, they would try to take what they wanted by force. It was a mistake that would cost them everything. The emergency session ended with no resolution. The aliens filed out of the chamber, some angry, some desperate, all of them still refusing to admit the simple truth. They needed humanity. More than humanity needed them. Dai-Yun closed the communication channel and began preparing her report. For Earth, the time for watching and waiting was coming to an end. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when you threatened the species that had been keeping your civilization alive. The lesson would be written in fire and blood across the stars. 1 year after Earth's withdrawal, the Hegemony Warfleet launched Operation Retrieval. Fleet Commander Vextal led 3,000 of the galaxy's most powerful warships toward the former human colony of New Sol. The fleet was massive, stretching across space like a metal river of death and destruction. Vextal was confident. Humans were weak, emotional creatures who avoided conflict. Their colonies would surrender immediately when faced with superior firepower. Within a few weeks, the galaxy would have its human workers back, and everything would return to normal. He had no idea that Admiral Sun Zhou Li was watching his every move. The human admiral sat in his command center deep beneath New Sol's capital city. The colony looked abandoned from space, empty buildings, silent streets, no signs of life. The aliens would think the humans had simply packed up and left. They were wrong. All stations report ready, sir, said Captain In Young Song from her position at the tactical display. The fleet is moving into position exactly as we predicted. Admiral Li nodded. For a full year, humanity had been preparing for this moment. They had known the aliens would eventually try to use force. Pride and desperation were a dangerous combination, and the galaxy had plenty of both. How many ships? Li asked. 3,000, sir. Every major species contributed vessels to the fleet. They really want us back. They want us back as slaves, corrected Major Ji-Hoon Kong, who commanded the ground forces. There's a difference. Li studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was impressive by any standard. Ships the size of cities, weapons that could crack planets, shields that could stop anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Against a normal enemy, it would have been unstoppable. But humans weren't a normal enemy. Dr. Haewon, your biological weapons ready. Doctor, you looked up from her workstation. She had spent the last year developing humanity's most secret weapon, a complete understanding of every alien species' weaknesses. For 50 years, humans had worked closely with these species, learning their biology, their technology, their psychology. Knowledge shared and friendship was now being used in war. Ready, sir? We know exactly how to hurt them, where it counts. The alien fleet entered New Sol's solar system with weapons powered and shields raised. They expected to find a peaceful human colony ready to surrender. Instead, they found something that would haunt their nightmares for generations. The first sign of trouble came when their sensors stopped working properly. The detection systems that had worked perfectly for centuries suddenly couldn't see past their own ships. The targeting computers that had never missed a shot began giving impossible readings. What's happening to our sensors? Demanded Fleet Commander Vextal on the bridge of his flagship. Unknown, sir, replied his sensor officer. All readings are scrambled. It's like something is interfering with our equipment. What they didn't know was that their sensor technology had been improved by human innovations over the decades. The humans had built hidden weaknesses into every system they had helped develop. With the right signal, any piece of alien technology that humans had touched could be turned against its users. The second sign of trouble came when the abandoned cities of New Sol suddenly came alive. Buildings that had looked empty revealed themselves to be massive weapons platforms. The peaceful colony was actually a fortress that had been centuries in the making. Captain Soyoung Bae watched from her stealth ship as the first wave of alien landing craft approached the planet's surface. The aliens were confident, expecting to find helpless human civilians. Instead, they found Major Kong and his ground forces waiting for them. The human soldiers who emerged from their hidden bunkers were not the peaceful researchers and diplomats that the aliens remembered. These were the descendants of Earth's warriors, hardened by a year of preparation for this exact moment. They had studied every alien military tactic, learned every weakness, prepared for every possible attack. The Battle of New Sol lasted 3 days. On the first day, the alien fleet lost half its ships to weapons they couldn't see and couldn't understand. Their own technology turned against them as human computer. Viruses spread through their networks like wildfire. On the second day, the alien ground forces found themselves trapped and surrounded. The humans had turned the entire planet into a maze of hidden passages and secret bunkers. Every street corner was a potential ambush. Every building could be a fortress or a trap. On the third day, Fleet Commander Vextel realized that his mighty war fleet was beaten. The species he had thought were weak and primitive had destroyed the greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human admiral." Admiral Lee's face appeared on the main screen. He looked calm and professional, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson to a confused student. Fleet Commander Vextel Lee said politely, "I am Admiral Sung-Ho Lee of the Terra Defense Corps. I wanted to thank you for this demonstration." Demonstration. Vextel could barely speak. His beautiful blue skin had turned pale with shock. Yes, for 50 years, the galaxy has thought of humans as weak and peaceful. You have just helped us show that we are much more than that. Your surviving ships are free to leave and carry this message back to your leaders. Vextel looked around his bridge. Most of his fleet was gone, turned into scrap metal floating in space. The ground forces he had landed were either dead or captured. The greatest military operation in galactic history had become a complete disaster. "What message?" he asked weakly. "That humanity desires only to be left alone. Continue to honor that wish, and we will return to our peaceful ways. Threaten us again, and we will show you what humans are really capable of when we stop being nice." The screen went dark. Vextel ordered his surviving ships to retreat. As they limped away from New Sol, he tried to understand what had just happened. How had the weak, primitive humans defeated the combined might of the galaxy's greatest civilizations? The answer was simple, though it would take the aliens years to understand it. Humans had never been weak. They had been kind. They had shared their knowledge and technology freely, not because they were primitive, but because they wanted to help. They had avoided conflict not because they were cowardly, but because they preferred peace. But when you threaten their families and their freedom, humans became something else entirely. They became the descendants of the species that had fought its way to the top of Earth's food chain. They became the inheritors of warriors who had conquered their own planet, and then reached for the stars. The galaxy had just learned that there was a big difference between choosing peace and being unable to fight. Admiral Lee watched the alien fleet disappear into hyperspace, carrying news of their defeat back to the rest of the galaxy. The message would spread quickly. Humanity was not to be trifled with, but he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was still dying without human help. The aliens would have to make a choice, swallow their pride and ask for help properly, or watch their civilizations crumble into dust. Either way, it would be on humanity's terms. 2 years after Earth's withdrawal, the galaxy had become a very different place. President Do-hae Lee sat in his office beneath the Lunar Command Center, reading reports from across the stars. The picture they painted was both tragic and satisfying. Half the galaxy's civilizations had collapsed completely. The other half survived as shadows of their former selves, struggling to maintain basic services without human help. The great starfaring empire that had once connected thousands of worlds had broken apart into isolated fragments, each one fighting for survival. The crystalline hegemony, once the proudest civilization in the galaxy, had lost 70% of its population to plagues that human medicine could have stopped easily. The Vorthok Empire had split into warring factions as their worlds could no longer communicate with each other. The mighty architects had abandoned their great construction projects and retreated to their home systems, using the last of their resources to keep their ancient cities running. "Mr. President," said his secretary, "the Altarian delegation has arrived." President Lee nodded. The Altarians were one of the few species that had consistently treated humanity with respect. They had voted against excluding Earth from the Andromeda Trade Consortium. They had opposed to military action against human colonies. Now they were the first to come seeking a new relationship. Ambassador Hyojin Kwan entered the office with 3 Altarian diplomats. The aliens looked tired and desperate. Their once beautiful silver robes were patched and faded. Their proud bearing had been replaced by the humble posture of people who knew they were begging for their lives. "President Lee," said the lead Altarian diplomat, "I am Ambassador Talvik of the Altarian Republic. We come to ask for your help." "What kind of help?" Lee asked, though he already knew the answer. "Our people are dying. Our agricultural systems have failed. Our medical facilities cannot treat the simplest diseases. Our transportation network has collapsed. We need human knowledge, human technology, human cooperation." Lee studied the aliens carefully. 2 years ago, these same beings had been part of a galactic civilization that considered humans to be primitive children. Now they sat in his office like refugees, seeking charity. "And what do you offer in return?" "Whatever you ask, Ambassador," Talvik said immediately. "True partnership, equal representation, full access to our resources and knowledge. We understand now that we were wrong about humanity. We were fools to think we could survive without you." Director Subano, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. "It's not that simple. For 50 years, we offered friendship and received condescension. We shared our knowledge and were told it was primitive. We asked for respect and were given insults. Why should we trust you now?" The Altarian ambassador's shoulders sagged. "Because we have learned the truth. We called you primitive, but you were actually more advanced than us in the ways that mattered. We thought we were the teachers, but you were teaching us all along. We were too proud to see it." President Lee walked to the window of his office and looked out at the earth below. It was a beautiful world, blue and green, and full of life. For 2 years, it had been isolated from the galaxy, but it had not suffered. If anything, humanity had grown stronger during their time alone. Dr. Changmin Park, Lee said to his secretary of Interstellar Affairs, "What is your recommendation?" Dr. Park consulted his notes. The Altarians have a good record of treating other species fairly. Their government is stable and democratic. They have resources that could be useful to us, particularly rare minerals and energy sources. I think we could work with them, but added Director, we need to make sure they understand the new rules. No more condescension. No more treating us as junior partners. If they want our help, they accept us as equals. Ambassador Talvek nodded eagerly. Absolutely, we understand completely. Full equality. True partnership. We will never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again. Lee returned to his desk and sat down. Very well. We will consider renewed cooperation with the Altarian Republic, but there will be conditions. Name them. First, all future agreements will be between equals. No senior and junior partners. No teacher and student relationships. We work together as friends or not at all. Agreed. Second, all human colonies and settlements will be completely autonomous. We will not be subject to galactic laws or regulations unless we choose to be. Agreed. Third, any species that threatens humanity or human interests will be cut off immediately and permanently. We will not tolerate another attempt at military coercion. Understood and agreed. Lee smiled for the first time during the meeting. Then welcome to the new galactic order. Ambassador Captain Boyoung Lim will escort you to our diplomatic facilities where we can begin detailed negotiations. As the Altarians left, Director O shook her head in amazement. 2 years ago, they were voting to exclude us from their trade consortium. Now they're begging for our help. Power dynamics change quickly in desperate times, Lee replied. The question is whether they've truly learned their lesson or if they're just scared. Dr. Park looked up from his reports. Does it matter? As long as they treat us with respect, we can work with them, and if they don't, we can always cut ties again. Lee nodded. Over the past 2 years, dozens of alien species had sent messages, begging for human help. Most were still too proud to offer true equality. They wanted human knowledge and technology, but they still thought of humans as servants, not partners. Those species would continue to struggle and decline until they learned to change their attitudes. The galaxy had plenty of time to think about its mistakes while its civilizations crumbled. But some species, like the Altarians, were beginning to understand the new reality. The galaxy's future would be built on mutual respect and genuine cooperation, or it would not be built at all. Captain Lim returned to report on the negotiations. The Altarians are serious about reform. Mr. President, they're offering full technological exchange, equal voting rights in any joint councils, and complete autonomy for human settlements. They really have learned their lesson. Goodly said, begin preparing the cooperation agreements, but keep them limited at first. We'll expand the relationship slowly as we build trust. The president looked out at the stars visible through his office window. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was slowly dying from its own pride and arrogance. But it didn't have to die. There was still time for the other species to learn what the Altarians had learned. Humanity had never wanted to rule the galaxy. They had only wanted to be part of it as equals. Now they would be partners with those who offered genuine friendship, and strangers to those who didn't. The galaxy had made its choice 2 years ago when it voted to exclude humanity from the Andromeda Trade Consortium. Now it was living with the consequences of that choice. Some species would adapt and survive. Others would cling to their pride until the end. Either way, the age of human subservience was over. The galaxy would have to earn humanity's cooperation, not demand it, and that cooperation would come as equals, or not at all. The new reality had begun.